Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Monday morning edition of the OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler, your wave reporter on all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And for today, over here at the Outer Banks this morning, I got up a little early, went out to another yoga class. Yoga's great for getting yourself into surfing shape, particularly helping to support your core and your hips and your knees and all your joints. And I find that that is helpful for me in my mobility, both around the places, but also out in the waters. So we got out to a nice yoga session this morning and then went down to the beach for a quick observation, found some very small waves. The official reports are showing about a 1 to 2 foot range at Jeanette's Pier. It looks a little bit smaller to me, probably in the range of about 1 foot, maybe a little bit bigger than 1 foot. Pretty choppy with those northwest winds coming in and a strong longshore current. But things are, according to the forecast, set to improve as far as waves go. And I just want to show you this beautiful geocolor composite provided to us from the scientists over at NOAA, this of the lower 48 states. And you can see right here for the Outer Banks right now, we're getting some very clear skies. And it's just beautiful with these cerulean blues overhead. It's majestic. The trees are dancing in the wind. Air temperatures in the lower 50s right now, much warmer than after we had that polar vortex smash from those warm winds driving up to the north and kicking off a piece of that cold polar air that swirled on down, providing a major cold snap for the U.S. Northeast and a bit of a cold snap here in the Outer Banks. And in the wake of that instability, we had this storm spin up off the Carolinas and is now moving north and east off the U.S. East Coast in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions. And it's out here, it's getting pretty strong. This storm is expected to kick up some hurricane force winds out here in the Maritimes and generate quite a swell. Some of this swell is going to head on back toward the Outer Banks. And so by Wednesday, we're likely to see 4 to 7 foot swell at the peak when the swell comes in on Wednesday. So we could have some really nice waves on Wednesday and into Thursday, possibly lingering on into Friday. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I can get out in the water and provide you guys with some observations from the water. We don't have our water-based reporting technology yet, but that is coming. That is coming soon, and I'm really excited about it. I don't know how I'm going to do it all, but if things get more noticed here over the Wave Report, we'll be able to transition to doing this on a more full-time basis. I've got some writing projects in the works as well, but we'll be able to shift your resources depending on the visibility. So if you guys want to help us, you can like, share, and subscribe. Um, please do if you get the chance. And if not, just please enjoy our reporting for you today. All right, so the main event though here off the US East Coast is this powerful nor'easter, and we're gonna do a bit of analysis on that for you guys. I've already done a little bit of analysis, but this thing is a very interesting feature to me, and so I'm gonna work with you guys. I'm gonna do my analysis even further with you here live. So this is a bit raw in the discovery process, which is fun for me. I'm a weather and climate observer. I'm an amateur, I guess you could say, amateur scientist or amateur science observer. I am my specialty is in meta-analysis and reporting. I have a background in some of the way back in emerging threats analysis and expertise in that. Occasionally I'll dip into that, but for now, I'm just going to do the weather observation, the amateur weather observation, and I'm a surfer as well. So I would say I'm about intermediate scale on the surfer scale, but we're going to improve our skills and try and get advanced. And I follow a lot of experts. I follow Dr. Michael Mann, for example, in the social media, Dr. Jennifer Francis, Professor Catherine Hayhoe, Stefan Ramstorff, um, Peter Gleek, Gavin Schmidt, and Zeke Hofster. I hope, I'm sorry, Zeke, if I've mispronounced your name. Zach Labe, and a number of climate activists as well, like Bill McKibben and Greta Thunberg. Climate is also very close to my heart, and especially now that I'm living on the coast, I feel an increased sense of urgency to act on climate, and we're going to take point in the climate activism and be an advocate specifically for the rapid deployment of clean energy. Um, I know, like, we have a lot of environmental activists out there that focus on a number of issues, and all of them are very important. But the issue that I'm going to focus on, which I believe is the center of gravity right now when it comes to the climate crisis, is the rapid deployment of clean energy, and that in also helping to us develop a sustainable society. All right, so we're looking at the tropical tidbits map, also provided by a climatologist I follow called Levi Cohen. He's a tropical weather expert, and it's going to get more interesting commentary from him as we get into the hurricane season for 2023. And but right now, what we're seeing is this big. I guess it's not huge. But it is very intense and intensifying nor'easter here off the U.S. East Coast, and that is a very strong feature of interest for me. We've got some disturbed weather here in the central U.S. Some snow is coming down through some of the mountain regions and into the central U.S. With some disturbed weather. And then we've got this other system off the U.S. West Coast, a strong system coming off of the Pacific as more strong storms funnel into the Pacific Northwest, Seattle area, and likely to impact Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Southern regions of California remain pretty dry. That's a bit of concern as we start to head on into late winter and into early spring. And it's worth noting here that there's some strong winds across West Texas, which are bringing an elevated fire risk potential right now. Nothing too crazy, but the risk is elevated, so worth noting. But we're going to go to the main feature for today, the main event, if you will. And I'm just going to update this map, which is our developing nor'easter. And this is very fascinating to me. We found some 70-mile-an-hour winds in the models in this thing earlier. And right now in this region, there is a hurricane force wind warning for the Maritimes. And so winds are expected to kick up to hurricane force as this system intensifies and moves off to the north and east. So let's actually bring it back and go a more staggered progression. It's moving off to the northeast pretty rapidly. Now look at this lower quadrant, this lower right-hand quadrant here. And yeah, see it right there? That's a 92 mile per hour sustained wind. That is really strong. That's especially in the global forecast system model, which tends to provide a more coarse reference for wind speeds. I bet we're going to get wind gusts in this thing over 100 miles per hour if this forecast holds together. And that's just nuts. That's this being about 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's advance this and see how intense these winds get. Looks like 92 might be the projected peak, but we'll see. I'm going to just advance this a few hours at a time, or well, it looks like 1 hour at a time. Yeah, so it does look like this afternoon at around 2 possibly being the peak potential for wind speeds. And then the system looks like it just kind of broadens a little bit. And as it broadens, the winds might spread out more, but the winds near the center tamp down. But it looks like in the global forecast system model showing a potential for 92 mile per hour sustained winds, 91 to 92 mile an hour sustained winds here in the lower right hand quadrant of this system. So a pretty powerful nor'easter starting to intensify out there. I don't know if it's technically a bomb, but it's expected to get down to 980 millibars by 2, which is pretty strong. The main forces driving it are the lower pressures here at the center of the storm, but also a lot of um, influence here coming in from this high pressure system out to the east. And this high is a big beastly thing at 1040 millibars. That's a very powerful high pressure system. So let's just look at that. Huge high associated with a large ridge just running in across Europe and Asia as well. So just a massive thing. And you got these winds around the high that are also interacting with this storm and helping it to spin up those hurricane force winds. And let's see if it gets much stronger here. It doesn't look like it's going to get too much stronger than 9. Yeah, a little bit. So it's going to continue to intensify a little bit as it heads on off the US East Coast. But the main feature of this system, at least for the US East Coast, is going to be its ability to generate winds for the maritime region and waves. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. As for the Outer Banks here, we're looking at the swell expected to improve as a result of this hurricane force storm system out off the US East Coast. And I do want to show you this marine weather statement provided by the National Weather Service for regions east of 69 west to the Hague line between 10 FM, 1000 FM and 939 north. So this is the system is expected to be centered near 39 north, 63 west, and is expected to bring hurricane force winds out in this region of the Atlantic Ocean just off the US East Coast. And the expected waves, expected winds are expected to intensify today and into this evening with hurricane force winds this afternoon and into this evening. So just worth noting that there's a National Weather Service marine statement for hurricane force wind warning for a region off the US East Coast. And I'll just show you where here on this map, it's about out here in the Maritimes. And you can see the rain field around the system right now in the National Weather Service radar. On the East Coast, we've got small craft advisories in the offshore environment here in the Outer Banks. I may need to refresh this screen to get the alerts. There we go. So we got some small craft advisories out, and then gale warnings up for areas off Long Island, to the east of Long Island, south of Connecticut and Rhode Island, and then heading on out in toward Massachusetts area, and then up the coast of Maine, and Massachusetts and New Hampshire here. All right, so let's just step back for a minute and look at the longer range forecast so we can understand the tendency for storm formation. And right now there's a tendency here off the US East Coast for nor'easters to form. The impact on the US East Coast has been less from nor'easters, where most of the systems have primarily impacted the Maritimes, and that tends to be the trend in the models. It looks like that there's a trend for more storminess here in the Mississippi River region and running on into East Texas and Oklahoma. And then there's a tendency of storms here for British Columbia, Seattle region, parts of Washington and Oregon. Lighter precipitation expected for California. And I did mention the dry conditions here in southeastern California, which is a little bit of a concern. All right, so let's get down to our local observations for our wave report. I picked 4 locations today because we have a lot of variance, and I wanted to also pick a south-facing beach. And right now at Jeanette's Pier, waves are in the range of 1 to 2 foot officially, probably closer to 1 foot. I got an observation earlier, but the surface is expected to slowly build throughout the day as we start to get that swell coming in from the east from that storm system out there. And then swell is expected to build through the day on Tuesday and then kick up to a pretty considerable level early on Wednesday. We might get a period early on Wednesday with 4 to 7 foot surf at Jeanette's Pier, and then 3 to 6 foot, 3 to 5 foot surf throughout the day. It's expected to be really nice. The surf forecasts are showing that Wednesday is expected to be a very good day for surf. The wind conditions aren't going to be too choppy, so I'm excited about it. I'm actually starting to get pretty stoked. At the very least, we'll get some good videos, but I'm gonna get out there. I'm gonna get out there and get into the surf and then talk about it. I love the surf, so I just can't stop myself. And I've got my cold weather gear. We'll talk a little bit about cold weather gear later. I haven't been able to do reviews on cold weather gear, and we're gonna change that today. We're gonna correct that. All right, so 1 to 2 foot surf at Jeanette's Pier, probably more in the range of 1 foot. Primary swell coming in at 7 seconds, with a secondary swell coming in at 3 seconds. Winds out of the northwest at 22 miles per hour. That's a cross-shore flow with a little bit of an offshore component. These are strong winds coming out of the northwest. Air temperatures are in the upper 40s, 48, 49 degrees right now. Ocean water temperatures at 50. So cooling down a little bit with those westerly winds, pushing the warm waters offshore more. Weather conditions today are sunny to partly cloudy with an expected high of 51 degrees. And so moving on down past Oregon Inlet to Esterns, I'll provide you guys with another little report here using our Google Maps for informational purposes. We find that waves at Esterns are in the range of 2 feet. The primary swell coming in at 7 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 4 seconds. Winds are out in the northwest at 28 miles per hour. That is a very strong offshore flow there at Esterns. Air temperatures at 50 degrees Fahrenheit right now. Ocean water temperatures at 51, so a tick warmer down there at Esterns. Weather conditions are sunny, windy, with an expected high today of 50 degrees at Esterns. All right, and then moving on down the beach to Buxton. Big Buxton is not the big location today, but I did want to get an observation from Buxton for you to show you some of the variants here. And right now, waves at Buxton are a bit larger in the 2 to 3 foot range. Primary swell coming in at 7 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 4 seconds. The winds are very strong out of the northwest at 26 miles per hour, and that is an offshore flow with those winds sweeping in from the northwest here. Air temperatures are also in the lower 50s, actually right there at the 50-degree mark, according to the temperature monitor I found for Buxton. And then the ocean water temperature is considerably warmer than Jeanette's Pier, 13 degrees warmer at 63 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's rather warm for wintertime, although in the average range there at Buxton, but yeah, sounds warm for wintertime. We're getting that influence from the Gulf Stream, as we typically do. Weather conditions are partly cloudy. Over there at Buxton, it's windy, and the expected high today is 53 degrees. And we're going to do a number 4 observation from Frisco. So we're going to turn right on Route 12 and head on down to Frisco. And we're going to go down to Frisco Pier. And we find that waves at Frisco, Frisco's our big wave spot for today. are in the range of 2 to 4 feet with a primary swell coming in at 7 seconds, secondary swell coming at 4 seconds. Swell's coming in from the south, the wind's coming in from the north, so it's probably pretty hollow down there at Frisco right now with a spray blowing off those tops of those waves. Uh, so, yeah, if you're going to do a little takeoff, that spray is likely going to smack you in the face a little bit. But with the primary swell coming in at 7 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 4 seconds, secondary swell getting blown offshore. So we'll see how long that swell lasts at Frisco with those strong northwest winds. Northwest winds are blowing at 26 miles per hour offshore, and that is very strong. Present temperatures are also in the range of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, although and this is air temperatures, the water temperature's a tick cooler at 62 degrees as we get a little further away from the Gulf Stream there. It is partly cloudy at Frisco right now, windy, and also an expected high of 53 degrees. And that, excuse me, that does conclude our roundup for local spots here on the Outer Banks. If you do go surfing, please attend to your cold weather protection. You're going to need it today, although it's not as crazy cold as it has been in recent days. And speaking of weather, it has been a bit warmer than normal down here in the Outer Banks for this time of year, and that has tended to be the case also for much of the U.S. East, although we have had some cold snaps with particularly with the polar vortex excursions as you get the warm air invasions of the Arctic displacing the cold air down to the south. And for the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, it does look like the US East is expected to see above normal to well above normal temperatures continue from February 13th through February 19th. And let's see, hold on, that was issued on February the 5th. Yep, that's the latest one we've got. It is worth noting that the US West Coast is expected to see below normal temperatures, and that precipitation is expected to center more for the regions from the central US westward, with the southeast California expected to see above normal precipitation, areas of Nevada and Arizona as well. So we'll keep a weather eye to this. We might see some stronger storms coming in off the Pacific and creating kind of a moisture flow here that we might want to keep an eye on. This region is prone to flash flooding, so we might want to just keep a weather eye to things and see how things develop. All right, looking at the severe weather statements from the Storm Prediction Center, we find there's not too much that's notable. Some storms forecast in the 3 to 8 day time period for the Gulf Coast and Texas region, running up the Mississippi River Valley, but nothing too crazy. We got some fire hazards for parts of Texas and West Texas there and into the Panhandle. Elevated fire risk, but again, nothing too crazy. And I did want to show you, ooh, do we have that? I guess I didn't. Yeah, I didn't throw up the, I thought I had. I'm just going to go ahead and click through here so you can see the hurricane force wind warnings here. Yeah, oh, I did. I showed you that, but then you didn't see the map. So this is the region where we expect the hurricane force winds off the U.S. East Coast as this nor'easter moves off to the north and east. And this is expected to kick up some serious surf as well. All right, I did want to go ahead and show you guys the forecast model for this storm system, actually showing right now a center in the range of 979 millibars. That is very intense. And let's just go ahead and move this model slowly as the storm intensifies off as it moves off to the north and east. This makes me want to, yeah, I want to pull up a different region so we can get a better view of this storm as it heads on off the US East Coast. So let's look at the North Atlantic. And you can see the interaction between the high pressure system and this powerful developing nor'easter off the US East Coast. And you get those winds sandwiched between the two, which is helping to really generate those hurricane force winds in that storm. So 977 millibars, 974 millibars as we start to get on into Tuesday. Yeah, and then so the system sinks to the south a bit. Now I'm curious where it goes. So it's going to get out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean um, by Thursday night. 3 millibar system gets sucked up toward Greenland and Baffin Bay, and then yeah, start to intensify as it heads on to the north. But here off the U.S. East Coast, you've got a hurricane force system in the 970 millibar range over the next day, and that's a really intense. That's a pretty intense system. I guess I can't really say really intense. It'd be really intense if it gets down to the 960s and 950 millibars, but still a pretty intense storm with hurricane force winds out there. All right, so let's look at waves, and I'm very interested in the wave pattern for the Outer Banks. So let's go ahead and zoom in right now to the near offshore environment in the Outer Banks. And it's worth noting that the near offshore waves are in the range of about 4 feet, but the swell is pretty confused right now. Doesn't look like we have too much actually coming into shore from the offshore environment. We got the swell coming in from the north here at about, looks like about 20 to 30 miles offshore. And then we got this south swell. So the swell is a little bit confused right now. This is going to change throughout the day as more swell comes in from the north and east. And so by the time we get into Tuesday, most of the swell is dominant from the east off the back of this powerful system. And I did want to show you the significant wave heights offshore, but it is worth noting that the onshore orientation of these 3 to 4 foot swells, 3 to 5 foot swells coming into the east facing beaches of the Outer Banks are going to generate better surf tomorrow and then much better surf into Wednesday. But I did want to show you the wave heights in association with this hurricane force system. And this is, off the Atlantic seaboard, which tends to be a little bit calmer than the central and northern regions of the Atlantic Ocean in the northern hemisphere. And what we've got for tomorrow is significant wave heights in the range of 34 feet off the U.S. East Coast. This is a nightmare for the shipping lanes. You guys are going to have to avoid that. Just a big mess out there, huge waves. And you can get waves double this size in the rogue waves and things like that. So stay safe out there, you mariners. My hat's off to you for braving those conditions and steering clear, hopefully. All right, so for tomorrow, we get 3 to 5 foot waves in the near offshore environment. Not all that's going to translate to the coast, probably 2 to 4 foot waves on the coast in some locations. And then by the time we get into Wednesday, the swell just propagates and it spreads out and just generally gets a lot better. So looking in the near offshore environment for the Outer Banks, we got 5 to 7 foot waves. And all of these swells are coming in from the east at a direct angle in providing these nice lineups to the coastline. That's why we expect such nice waves on Wednesday. And let's look at the air on Wednesday as well. Got some winds blowing offshore a little bit in the range of 10 to 20 miles an hour. Let's see, let's look at Jeanette's Pier. So yeah, it looks like about 10 to 15 miles per hour at Jeanette's Pier. So not calm, but not crazy winds blowing offshore, not like blowing massive amounts of spray in your face and things like that, but just enough to hold up that swell that comes off the backside of that big old low out there that kicked up to hurricane force that's kicking up to hurricane force now. So just looks like really, really, really good conditions for waves. So very well formed waves and nice sized waves expected on Wednesday. I'm excited about it. I guess I'm getting pretty stoked to use a surfer term. Okay, and so we got some nice waves coming in on Thursday, although waves not quite as tall in the range of 3 to 5 feet, but with that nice orientation and looks like winds coming in from the south, but not yet strong, so in the range of about 5 to 15 miles per hour in the models here. So that just looks really good. Good waves coming for the Outer Banks over the next week. And then on into Friday, swell gets a little bit more confused, but still with a nice orientation toward the shore, like a pocket of nice waves here by midday on Friday in the range of 3 to 5 feet as well. So not really falling down too much into Friday. looks like we get a bit of a more southerly influence, and we might be getting another coastal storm starting to develop in the Friday time period. All right, so that's pretty cool. I do want to head on out to the North Atlantic here because things are getting interesting. I mean, right now we've got this massive high pressure system and storms up here by Greenland and Iceland and Svalbard, just kind of like a daisy chain of low pressure systems out here. And right now, this is kicking up like a large swath of very significant surf in the range of 25 to 30 foot significant wave heights out here off of Iceland, particularly. Now let's advance this model and see how these storms progress. It turns into like this big old frontal system as you get the boundary between the high and then the lows to the north and the cold air running in from Greenland and Baffin Bay here. And you get this big line of powerful winds blowing up between Iceland and the UK and kicking up serious significant wave heights in the range of 30 feet. This on Tuesday. But look as we get into Wednesday, as this thing roars into the Arctic. I mean, with these powerful winds, I was looking at the wind models. I'll show you the wind model. This is the wind model I was picking up for this time period. So we got like 60-mile-an-hour winds just roaring off of Ireland to the west of Ireland, and then running all the way up towards Svalbard here, 55 to 65-mile-an-hour winds, and really kicking up the waves off of Scandinavia here. And let's get back to this model. This is just nuts. Significant wave heights in the range of 40 feet off of Scandinavia, and does look like it kind of gets in close to the coast here. You got a lot of rocky areas and little islands offshore that tamp down the swell, but there are areas where the swell does get close to shore. I don't know of anyone that surfs this western side of Scandinavia, but there's got to be some sick locations. Like if some of these islands off Scandinavia here, I mean, just look at this. 31-foot significant wave heights just right offshore. Let's go ahead and zoom in really close. I'm curious. I don't know if I can get a closer measure. This is, of course, a model. Models are coarse, but yeah, 30-foot significant wave heights off this tiny little island off of Scandinavia here. I don't know if there's a breakout there. It is going to be way cold. But yeah, I've noticed the surfers are getting a lot braver with the cold water conditions, and so I'd be curious if anyone on Surfline or Magic Seaweed or the folks that really get into this stuff, you know, get any surf kind of footage out here off of Scandinavia, because 30-foot significant wave heights is sick. God, I don't know who would want to go out in that kind of stuff, but maybe there's somebody. That's God, that's nuts. But in any case, major weather system here roaring in toward the Arctic. There's warm winds coming in from the south. These warm winds are expected to blow across the extreme northern North Atlantic between Iceland and Scandinavia and then run up toward the Arctic Ocean here. And let's go ahead and advance this because I'm curious about the wave heights as it gets close to the ice pack. If you get a lot of waves blowing into the ice pack, it just can really chew it up. So you get some, yeah, really tall, significant wave heights in the range of 17 feet near the ice pack, and then off Svalbard here in the range of 18 feet off the ice pack off the west coast of Svalbard. Um, and then blowing up toward the Siberia region, yeah, as it starts to dissipate later on into Thursday there. I believe that's Thursday. Yep, Thursday. So yeah, 7th is Tuesday, 8th is Wednesday, 9th is Thursday. Absolutely. But major, major big wave event here off of Scandinavia. Big deal. There's got to be some crazy footage out there. Someone get their cameras out. And it's worth noting we're starting to get these bomb cyclones again off of, yeah, let's clear that. Okay, bomb cyclones again down south of the Aleutians with the storm track tending to run here from Asia, north of Japan, south of the Aleutians, and then running into the Pacific Northwest. So that's the angle of the storm track. No big old rivers of moisture or anything like that, but we do get these bomb cyclones south of the Aleutians. This is a more typical La Nina type pattern. La Nina is a natural variability system in the climate where the Pacific equatorial waters go between or shift between periods of cool in the eastern equatorial Pacific to periods of warm in the eastern equatorial Pacific. And this, let's go to the ocean temperature map here really quick. Let's go to sea surface temperature and we'll go to now and we'll go to anomalies. Boop. Okay, so you see this big blue pool here? That's an indicator of La Nina. So let's go to A. There we go. Currents. Sorry, I'm trying to make it more visible for you guys. So you get like this cool blue pool out here in the eastern equatorial Pacific. That's La Nina, and La Nina happens periodically every like 2 to 5 years, and it's a natural variability feature of the climate where the Pacific Ocean waters here cool, and because they're over such a large stretch of water, they have an impact on the global weather system. So La Nina affects global weather. And then La Nina eventually will transition into El Nino, and then you'll get warmer waters here, and that has its own signature of effects. And so when the Pacific equatorial waters in this region tend to be cooler, tend to get more of a storm track running in toward the Pacific Northwest and strong storms running in through that region with La Nina. So we see that now. And I just also want to say, though, that La Nina has no, it's not a driver of climate change. I hear a lot of disinformation out there, people saying, oh, it's La Nina that's causing the climate change. And nope, nope. The thing that's causing the climate change is the fossil fuel burning, the stuff that goes into the combustion engines gets burned and turns into carbon dioxide in the air. Carbon dioxide traps heat. You can do a very basic science experiment, put a flask of CO2 out, you know, in the sunlight and a flask of like regular air out in the sunlight, and the flask of CO2 will warm faster than the flask of air. So, and there's other ways you can test it, but there's a spectrometer way. I mean, it absorbs sunlight on a certain spectrum. You talk to the climate scientists, ask Dr. Michael Mann about it and Catherine Hayhoe. Ask an expert. Don't listen to some Yahoo that watched a documentary somewhere, got confused or misinformed, and tells you, "Ooh, La Nina's driving it." No, La Nina's like just a variability feature in the Pacific where the Pacific waters in this region right here in the Eastern Pacific shift from colder than normal to warmer than normal. It's just as the ocean surface cycles and changes its heat balance. It's like the ocean going through its own rhythm of heat and cool. And that's what happens. And then it has an effect on weather. So, but yeah, the thing affecting the climate right now is the burning of fossil fuels. So don't listen to Yahoos or others who might have an agenda. Listen to the facts. But in any case, yeah, we're moving more toward we're in a La Nina feature for the Eastern Equatorial Pacific, and we're moving more back toward a La Nina style pattern with storms out here in the Pacific Ocean. And let's go back to waves. Let's go to now waves, ocean waves. Oh, yeah, there we go. Boop. And then we'll go to the bomb cyclone there that is expected to form out here south of the Aleutians. And that, stronger storms forming in this region are a signature of La Nina and then tracking into the Pacific Northwest. So nothing too crazy, but definitely strong storms for the Pacific Northwest and for this portion of the Pacific. And it's just worth noting. And then off California, we'll probably see some bigger swells as these storms move in. Right now, actually, pretty nice swell out there in California. Looks like for the central and northern coastline in the range of 12 feet, and then getting on into the southern beaches and areas, looks like, yeah, we're just around the point there at about 8.7 feet, and then into the coastline in the 4 to 5 foot range. So that's our wave report for today. Thank you for joining me for the OBX wave report. I am your wave reporter, Robert Scribbler, and I am discussing with you all things waves, weather, and climate and beach lifestyle for the Outer Banks, for the lower 48, for the North Atlantic, and for the Pacific at times. And as we do, I'd just like to ask you to please do everything you can to help protect our coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning, those impacts being sea level rise and more intense storms fueled by hotter ocean surfaces and hotter land surfaces and the force of the evaporation moving off of those surfaces. The primary drive right now for responding to climate change, saving our coastlines, is to mass deploy clean energy. And the clean energy sources right now that are primed for rapid deployment are wind, solar, and electric vehicles, and their ability to enable things like smart grids and clean energy trading. So thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report, and I will be back with you shortly. Oop, where am I? Oh, I'm on the